you can even vote to the questions that are most appealing to you. And those are going to be answered for sure in the Q&A session. Otherwise, you can also ask questions in the Q&A slots. We have 2 slots of 10 minutes each. And moreover, you can reach out to us at any point after this session. So shall we start recording? Oh, it has already started. Good, fantastic. So the agenda for today is that I'm going to tell you a bit about the new European Bauhaus, which I'm sure it's at this stage you are all familiar with. I'm going to tell you a bit more about what do we do in EAT Community NEB and about the Connect NEB Call. Then we do have 2 projects from the last editions of Connect NEB. Room Ontario and Sam Stanku will tell us about their projects, how they have succeeded. Then we have this 10 minutes of a Q&A slot. And then my colleague Anne-Laure and Rebecca will go with you through the general procedure of the application form. This year we have a new platform called NetSuite. So yeah, it is new, and don't worry, as I said, this session is going to be recorded and you can go back to it at any point. And so will be published the guidelines for the application form. Last but not least, Ellen Gale will tell us a bit more about how to write a successful proposal. And we, again, will have the last 10 minutes of Q&A. So, the new European Bauhaus, I like to know, just as a starting point, how many of you have already worked in a NEB project? I think Rebecca may post the question in the chat and you can answer it. Just wait for a second. Well, we're doing that. Yeah, it is.
Technical difficulties. No, it's not working.
Okay, no problem. No problem at all. It's fine. That's okay. Because anyway, I wanted to give just a very, very brief explanation of it. You know, it was started, New European Bauhaus was started in October 2021 by the President von der Leyen. And the idea is to bring the Green Deal onto the ground, to make it accessible, to make it real for citizens. And how to do that is to bring citizens' needs at the core. So cities not only have to be sustainable, they have to be inclusive, they have to be for people and by people, created by them too. And they have to have some quality of experience. So thus the motto of the New European Bauhaus is beautiful, sustainable, and together. But just briefly for you to know, the name Bauhaus means house of building. It makes a reference to the School of Design that started in 1930s in Germany. And at that time, the Industrial Revolution had already kicked in, and they wanted to they wanted to mix the offer of producing mass scale with the arts and crafts. So they wanted to democratize what it was until then something only exclusive for rich people, which was art and design, to make it accessible for everyone, to make so everyone's needs could be responded by this combination of art and industry. So likewise, nowadays, we have the means, we have the technology, we have the arts, and we have the people. So let's start. As you know, the initiative has been published, developed and deployed by the GRC. The GRC is the Joint Research Center, and they have created the NEB Compass. You can find about it in here. We'll share the slides too. And it's a guiding framework for any project that aims to be NEB. So what it does is it describes the 3 values and it traces the path for a project to become truly NEB. So for instance, it defines the way of working through a participatory process, a multi-level of engagement, so culture and diversity as a central aspect, and a transdisciplinary approach, so collaboration between different groups, different social groups, different experts to deliver an integrated solution. And regarding the values, it's very interesting. So you can really understand why do they mean by sustainable and beautiful and together, because they set an ambition, 3 levels of ambition per each value. So for sustainability, the level 1 would be to rethink, repurpose services, products to reduce pollution. Level 2 would be to close the loop from linear to circular processes. And the level 3 would be to regenerate. So it would be a project that doesn't take from nature, but gives back to nature. And together, it aims obviously to have inclusivity and affordability for everyone. And the consolidation of that inclusivity would be overcoming existing segregation of social groups. And finally, it would aim to transform, to inspire new forms of living by building on solidarity, cooperation, and raising awareness of discrimination. Then the last value is the beautiful, and I know it's the one that usually it takes the most to be able to measure. So I wanted to explain it a bit more because it is explained in a way that if we activate our senses and emotions, then we are really rooted to the ground, to the place. So when we are really present in a place, we're not looking at our phones. We are enjoying the environment by looking, by smelling, by hearing, by tasting some food even. So thus, it improves our social and mental well-being. So that connection across different contexts and meaningful social activation reinforces the sense of belonging. And last ambition would be the integration of these new cultural and social values as a long-lasting effect of the project. So we always aim that this, whatever you propose to do, it goes beyond the funding, it goes beyond a year, it stays into the ground. It has become so meaningful for society that it's been found a way to keep it. Okay, here we have the team. We in EIT Community NEB, we are several KICs working together. Currently it's led by Climate KIC and with urban mobility, food and manufacturing. And that's because those topics that are cross-sectorial, such as the NEB, we join forces with other KICs to deliver to its best potential. As I said at the beginning, I am Maria Marruat, and we are in charge of all the citizen engagement pillar together with Anne-Laure and Rebecca. Climate KIC, Ellen and Natalia are also working in citizen engagement calls, and Marianne Lemberger and Annalisa from manufacturing. There are more people in the team working in other activities, but we felt that we wanted to introduce you the ones more relevant to this one today. So these are the other activities that I was talking about. We say it all starts for social demand for change because the axes that we have presented in the calls, the 4 axes, they come from a co-design phase that the GRC did in Europe, in different places, in different towns, different sizes of towns and cities across Europe, that they collected what were the most pressing challenges for society, and they categorized it in these 4 axes: back to nature, sense of belonging, prioritizing people and places that need it the most, and circularity. So because we based our activities on that, this is our initial point, social demand for change. We do Ignite NEB events. I'm sure you heard about it, and if not, check it out. Maybe we can put it in the chat where they are. These are kind of soft hackathons, and we wanted to have a more inclusive hackathon for communities. So it's not only targeted to students or young professionals, it's anyone who can be involved in a couple of days in a more playful event to rethink about a specific challenge can join. And those who win are offered a voucher to test further their solution, to pilot it in real environments through Grow NEB. If this group even aims to or wishes to become a company and it becomes a startup, it could apply to Catalyze NEB program. This is our acceleration program that aims to accelerate startups. So we scout in the market around 20 startups per year that have NEB values, and we help them to grow. Then we have the citizen engagement calls. Today we are talking about Connect NEB, but next Tuesday is Co-Create NEB, as co-creation of public spaces. If you are interested, you can join. And those projects that will be successful will be able to apply to Enhance NEB call. This is a call that allows to replicate, to scale up those activities elsewhere. Throughout that, we have NEB mentors. These are mentors that help these activities to run smoothly according to the European Bauhaus values and principles. So here we have Connect NEB is who can apply is single entities, any public, private NGOs. The maximum funding by the EIT is 15,000, and they need to bring 20% of co-funding. Co-Create is a consortia between 2 and 4 and is more tangible into the ground, meaning that it needs to be focused into redesigning co-creation of public space and the available it needs to be at least one city involved because of that, because we are acting on public space. And the maximum that they can receive is 45,000 with 25% co-funding. So what we're gonna award is 8 projects. And here is an example. So to bring 20% of co-funding would mean that the project needs to be 18,750, thus 15,000 would be from EIT funding, and the project owner would be bringing 3,750 as co-funding. Don't be daunted by that, because that could be personnel, for instance. So you could say, we have invested more hours in personnel than what is covered. Therefore, this is my co-funding contribution. It doesn't really need to be cash towards something, but if the project wanted it, it can also be that. You will see later there are different cost categories. In the event that the project is even more expensive, at 20,000, the EIT still would give you 15,000 as a maximum. It just means that you'd be co-funding the rest. Financial sustainability mechanism for those who have worked with KICs is usually compulsory. But in these projects, it is not. There is a question about how do you envisage the project to continue beyond the grant? How do you plan? Do you have a market sales plan? How you're going to collect data that you're going to use later? You're teaming up with other calls later? Or is this a bigger project that accompanies a bigger aim? So those who answer that, you will have scoring points from 0 to 5. And if you don't answer, you'd have in that question 0, but you may still qualify if the other questions are very highly rated. So the aim is, I'm sure you know by now, is to activate citizen-generated solution initiatives that empower citizens, of course, and we wanted to deploy beautiful, sustainable, and inclusive solutions in their communities. And of course, we want them to influence local policies for change, and that is because we want this change to stay beyond the funding. So these are the 4 axes that I was talking about when before, when the GRC collected all these inputs from different citizens, different locations around Europe. They categorize it in these 4 axes: reconnecting with nature, gaining sense of community, prioritizing places and people that need it the most, and the need for long-term circular products and services. So our calls, you need to give an answer with your solution to one or more of these axes of these challenges. So here we have outputs and outcomes. Outputs for us are the activities that we do to help outcomes to be achieved. So we do as an output co-design and co-stewardship. We do social activation and non-label education of training activities. And the results that we wish to see, at least one of them, is to boost solutions, again, to advance into sustainability, beautiful and inclusive of local strategies, prioritize citizens and needs and empower them to co-design those solutions, and to strengthen the transdisciplinary and intergenerational collaboration. All of the above aim to influence local and policy strategies to achieve system change. So here on the right, you can see some of our past projects. Bring Nature Home. It's in Romania and aim to transform underused space into peri-urban community, using biophilic design principles. And they created this handbook. So it could be replicated elsewhere. It could be follow-up after the project is finished. Then we have the Danube Design Lab, and they also looked into spaces around the Danube to regenerate them. And they presented those projects co-created by people into the town hall with the mayor. So here is the picture. KPIs. So you will see that at least you must comply with 8.1, which is participant in non-label education and training activities. And that is because, of course, we want you to co-create. And this is a way to record this co-creation in a structured manner. Okay, you will see in the call, it tells you how you can report it. And then you have to pick one of the other KPI. It could be demonstration pilots and labs. It could be strengthening resilience in climate change. It could be transition toward greater circularity or increased public engagement of food systems. So the project implementation overview is that the project we aim to start in February 2025, and it will last 10 months until end of November. We'll have 2 mandatory deliverables, one midterm and one at the end. We have this mentorship program that I mentioned at the beginning, so you have mentors that can help you to the activities that achieve the maximum impact. We'll have cohort meetings. So, if we select 8 projects of Connect, we do a cohort meeting online, and we do an in-person meeting with all the activities that we fund around the year. So we meet them all at the end of the year, usually in Barcelona. So here is the timeline, as I said. So the midterm terms to be around now in July, project finishes in December, and then we wrap up in December. Project finishes in November, and we wrap up in December when you need to deliver the final report. And now I will introduce you to, I believe, is Sam. Yes, Luos, from Urbanized Hub, who can explain us their project, the Connect project that had been successfully implemented. So please, Sam, go ahead and remember that you only have 5 minutes. Sorry for that, but it's a quite packed agenda.
Hi, I'm Luca. First of all, I'm not going to be Sammy.
Okay.
Sammy wouldn't be able to present, first of all. And second of all, how do I take control of the presentation? Should I be able to change the slides myself?
You can, there is a button on top that says take control, but if you don't find it, you tell me. Okay, you take
it. I got it.
Fine, perfect.
Okay, thank you. So, first of all, just to give a bit of context, the project was named Lugoj for Kids by Kids. Lugoj is a town in Romania. Basically, what we wanted to do is to identify the problems that they have for the cycling infrastructures and the ability for them to cycle inside a town, and together with the community to be able to come up with solutions to better improve. Lugoj is located in the west side of Romania. It has a population of nearly 50,000 inhabitants, which is right now going to a decline compared to the last census. It has an aging population and an industrial profile who is currently losing industry. So it has a lot of external migration, especially towards the young part of the population. Just to continue with context, I have selected a few of the important parts of the SWOT analysis that we considered would be relevant for this. So as for the strengths, over 25% of trips in Lugoj are made by bike. This is quite a few trips in comparison to the rest of Romania. Also, it has quite a favorable size because on the north-south axis, it has at most 4 kilometers, which is a nice distance for cycling and alternative mobility uses. As a weakness, we have identified inadequate cycling infrastructure. Also, with the current infrastructure is poorly maintained and in rapid decomposition. And as it is often in Romania with a car-centric environment, it is usually blocked by parked cars, which can be quite dangerous for cycling. As an opportunity, we identified that it has an identity as a biking city of Romania, which its first biking club was developed way before the 1900s. And as one of the threats, the number of trips is declining rapidly, especially amongst the younger population, while at the same time the population is becoming less mobile and older. From the SWOT analysis, we identified 2 objectives which we wanted to address. First of all, to identify obstacles people face in cycling to school, evaluate the existing infrastructure and co-create solutions to present to the municipality. This was done by creating a list of 13 possible challenges that you could encounter on your route. The objective was basically used during the data collection process, in which we gave them an application, a GIS application, that they could pinpoint their exact problems on a map on their way to school while cycling. While the second objective was to stimulate people's participation and involvement in the decision-making process of their school by forming a long-term working group to deal with school projects. We were very keen on using a participatory approach and a collaboratory approach because Romania is really suffering in this point, and the community is not usually involved in the decision-making process. Basically, for outcomes from the 2 objectives, we derived a couple outcomes. First was the GIS map, which was a complete map containing all the inputs in regards to problems and solutions. The one that we used later to give to the municipality to be able to be inspired with solutions. And the second was part of a story map, which was a more interactive way of presenting to the kids what their actual problems they encountered and to be able to make them easily visualize what's happening. Also, the workshops came as one of the outcomes. We divided them into 3 workshops. One was for the data collection, and the other 2 of them were for the problem solving. We basically wanted to tell them how to identify a problem and how to use critical thinking in order to identify solutions for that problem. and to make them responsible for their own environment. And the third one was public engagement, which we've done through municipality channels and media channels. And we wanted to promote as much as possible the collaborative part of the project. We came up also with some advices concerning future implementation of the project. We found that communication, especially with kids, is really important to be done in channels that they are familiar with. This also happened just as the pandemic started, so it was quite tough communicating with them. But if you do the communications in a way that they are familiar with, you will be able to better captivate them and to keep them involved. And also, we identified that we used kids from the 5th to the 8th grade, which we find really interesting in devising solutions. However, we identified that they're more prone towards material incentives. So using high school students, it would be ideal for iterations due to autonomy and motivation, and they would be more prone towards community, focused on community rather than on prizes and material incentives. Okay. From the outcomes, these are some of on the left side, you can see the interactive application. This was what the first one is, a heat map of where the most problems were. As you can see, there's mostly concentrated inside the city center, as that's where also the school was. And the map on the right is the map we later devised in GIS to give to the municipality in order for them to use for their mobility plan. And kind of the impact, educating the youth on sustainable transportation methods and associated infrastructures. And also something really important that we wanted to do is that to educate the young community that they're responsible for their own environment, and they would be able to, if they take action, they would be able to change their own environment, which we think was one of the most important parts of the project. Further solidifying the town's identity as a cycling hub. Since the project, first of all, the municipality started working, they're planning on doing 27 more kilometers of biking lanes with adjacent infrastructure, delimiting it from the street and making it more safe. And since the infrastructure has started appearing, also biking races have started appearing in Lugoj. There is a historic race which now has an amateur category, and it's growing per year just because of the city's identity as a cycling hub. Yeah, also I've added some pictures, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me, or if you need any more clarification, please feel free to ask me.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Luca. It's a good overview of the project, and I appreciate you're here today with us. So now we are going to move to the next project. So Rui, so if you are there, I don't know if you want to take control or.
Can you hear me, I guess?
Yes.
Okay, good, but I don't have control yet. But let me just start by thanking you guys, AT NEB community, for the invitation to present Minant. It's really kind also to be here to sharing our experiences here.
Oh no, that's
not yet.
I think it's coming, the video. I think you need to go into the right slide.
What do you mean? It should be on below,
now.
right?
Now we are. Go ahead, please.
But for me, it should be on the bottom, right? The change of slides.
Yeah. Now we can see Minante Watermill.
Yeah, but it's not working for me yet.
No?
The change of slides, I cannot change them.
Okay. Maybe then we take control and you let us know.
Yeah, okay. There are several slides, so I think I'll just say several times the next slide, but that's fine.
That's okay.
Okay, so first, my name is Rui Monteiro. I'm from the Rio Environmental NGO in northern Portugal. Happy to be here to present Minant Watermill, prototyping a natural and cultural experience for public space co-creation. I guess next slide. Which I cannot see it. Yeah, so this took place last year from June to December, and it aimed at experimenting and testing new ways of celebrating, contemplating, and enjoying a public space in the Minant Watermill area, which is in the Neva River in other coastal Portugal. Next slide, please. And this was done through for local partners, as an environmental NGO, a research center on the topic as well, and 2 municipalities, because the Neva River actually divides these 2 municipalities. And please, next slide. And so you can also see a bit of the area. This is a former water mill of the area. There are some not working as you can see, and this is the public sector we kind of worked on. Next slide, please. And in 21, just to let you know how this kind of started. This was based in a previous project where the local community kind of decided that this is the area that we actually there is in needs of new users and celebration. And next slide, please. So how this was done through a set of interventions that was done with, by, and for the local community, and this kind of took place material or immaterial as well, in a way trying to provide different experiences of this public space. And some indicators: over 500 persons involved, 14 public events and workshops, 14 interventions, and actually 14 local stakeholders engaged. Actually, also talking about, actually in the beginning, our initial objectives were a bit lower than this, but somehow we got carried away within the process and actually surpassed all of the goals there. Next slide, please. And just a bit of an overview of some of the main outputs besides the interventions. Just highlights, for example, the video documentary, an outdoor photo exhibition, a scientific seminar, or even we actually took a chance to do the first, what ended up being the first European Bauhaus national event, bringing local players to the area as well. And next slide, please. So I'll just briefly show you several of the interventions, just telling you the name, but you are more than welcome just to send an email if you want after, or just read the details in the slides when you receive them. So Common Ground, and next, a flag for Minant, a panel of local flora prints, reimagining a water channel, wood construction experiments, a music experiments and immersion in nature, signage boards for the living gallery, which is the name actually we gave to the in the end to the legacy of the project. Tree house, fictionalizing Minant, memories workshop, the NEB capacitation session and a national event, an artistic residency as well, trash with style, and so on. So this is actually, as you see, quite productive actually in the end, involving a lot of stakeholders in the area. And in the end, the impact was as we hoped for and wished for, which is the effective enrichment of the area through biodiversity, through heritage valorization, celebration of the area, and so on. Other impacts, such as starting new talks about nature preservation and so on, or for example, discussion about new governance models of public spaces, the validation of the approach we took, and still the material legacy that is still there of this intervention that we have developed. Also the chance to record local stories and actually to build new partnerships in the area. I'm not sure if there is half a minute for a short video, but you let me know. Otherwise, we can move on. But that's it from my side.
Thanks so much, Rui. Give us a good teaser of what you did, and I'm sure that if anyone is more interested, can reach out to you.
Thank you.
So, and now we can answer some of the questions, I believe. So I don't know, Rebecca, if you want to read out some of them, and between us we'll answer.
So we've got a couple questions from Shia here in the chat box. First question being, when applying for Connect NEB funding, should the applicant already secure the co-funding, or can the co-funding be in the application process?
Yes, good morning, everyone. So I can take this one, actually. I'm Anne-Laure from EIT Urban Mobility. So at the time of the submission, we're going to check if your proposal actually comply with the minimum requirements, which is 20% of co-funding, right? We're not going into looking into any evidence or this is true or not, okay? Actually, during the project implementation, at least, it depends also on the kick that you will be funded, but you will just ask you where this actually co-funding come from. And I will explain in a second in the application form, you will see how this looks like, okay? But of course, you will need to have this co-funding secure at the moment you actually report this cost during the project implementation, okay? I think I can take the second one, Rebecca, which is what types of co-funding qualify for the Connect NEB funding. Are related research grants acceptable? So I will also show you in the NetSuite application form what are the type of co-funding we look for, but basically they are categorized as own funding. So this is your own resources, for instance. It also can be from private resources or non-EIT funding or other European funding or national funding, for instance, okay? Again, we just ask you to put the percentage and just to select which is apply to your project, but we are not asking you any evidence at that stage. Maybe the third questions maybe for you, Maria, about regarding the minimum target for KPIs, can I arrange multiple rounds to accumulate participants to reach the target?
Yes, you can. And actually, we understand that you will do more than one activity. Therefore, at least the addition of them or some of them have to reach the target.
The fourth one, I can also take it regarding mandatory deliverables. I assume they are only to be submitted after receiving the NEB funding, not during the application process. Is that correct? So actually, during the application process, you will see you will need to commit. You will need to say, okay, I'm going to commit to deliver 2 deliverables as they are mandatory. And during the project implementation, this is when you will actually ask to deliver them. So one going to be at the midterm of the implementation, project implementation, and another one at the end. And the funding goes a little bit in a different way. It is explained actually in the project implementation handbook, and each cake has their own way of working. But mainly, most of the time, and mainly if you are an SME, you will receive a pre-financing at the beginning. But this is regardless of the deliverables. You will need to deliver, as I said, midterm and at the end. I can take the fifth one, the beginning in the KPI description. What do EIT professional development course and HEY CBI means? So EIT professional development course, we are talking about any professional course that has actually the label of EIT. And for that, we have, for instance, Maria, you can complement the capacity, the competence fab, courses, when there are a list of different courses available that you can select, that you can actually say, okay, this activity belongs to this course. HEY means high education initiatives, and CBI, it's capacity building initiatives. So they are very, very niche type of project related to high education, and they usually have the label. So I don't think this will be the case of NEB, but this is good to know what this looks.
Yeah, we believe that how they can be reported is because here you ask how can the plan, education and training in the application qualify? should be registered online and made public. So what we believe is that we would like to see a structured session for co-creation. So it qualifies if it has an aim, a clear aim and purpose that you want to achieve, a clear methodology, a clear tracking of assistants that come. So you need to get signatures, and all this is part of the reporting to make sure that it has been something meaningful, structured, monitored, and measured. And then, is there the only difference between co-create and connect fundings, the inclusion of partners? No, it's not only this, which is actually a big difference, but also the fact that the co-creation is mostly focused on co-creation of public space, tangible on the ground. That usually are projects that they have a component of design and something of a pilot that takes place in place. That's why we need more partners and we need more budget to achieve though. While the Connect NEB Call are social engagement activities that sometimes it results into something tangible, sometimes it doesn't. It just focuses on methodologies to be escalated or continued somehow afterwards. And I'm not sure if we have answered all the questions from him.
So all the answers from Shea have been answered. There's 2 questions again asking about which kind of co-funding is allowed, and Anne-Laure will be showing this throughout the NetSuite demonstration shortly. Let's see if there are any other questions here. I believe the rest can be taken in chat. Maria, we're a little bit behind schedule, so I suggest we carry on.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's carry on. I think, Anne-Laure, now you will walk us through the operational side.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm going to start with the call calendar, actually, so you can see how the call is organized. The call was open on the 4th of July. We have today the info session, and the call will be open until the 26th of September at 5 in the afternoon. So this is the call deadline, meaning that after this day and after this time, the call will be closed and you won't be able to submit any proposal. This is very, very important that you keep in mind the day, but also the timing, the hour, because if you submit 1 minute after the deadline, it's already too late for you. Okay, so very important that you keep the timeline in mind. After the submission, we're gonna go through the eligibility and admissibility checking if your proposal meet the requirement. This is gonna be up to during September up to mid-October. The eligible proposal will go into the quality evaluation. We'll explain this later together with Rebecca in October, November, and then end communication of results in November, beginning of December, depending on a bit on how many proposals we're actually going to assess. And December, January, conditions clearing project onboarding. This means you will have a bit of time to go for those who are selected to go through the conditions that you will receive most likely, and you will start with the contracting and onboarding. So the project can start on the 1st of January, 2025 as requested. Of course, this calendar is tentative. So as I said, depending on how many proposals we're gonna receive, this can change a little bit, but at least you have an overview right now. How to apply? I'm gonna show you in live how the application form looks like, okay? And this is new. So for those who know us and have already participated or applied to a NEB call, EAT community NEB call, launched by, coordinated by us, we were using Plaza at that time, but this is now new. We are using the NetSuite platform. The very first step that applicants you need to actually do is to register in the EU funding and TEDM portal to obtain a PIC number. This is true for any organization that never applied to any European funding program. If you did that already in the past and you have actually already a PIC number, this is not needed. You have your PIC number, your 9-digit code, and you can actually skip step 1. You can also look into the portal and check your PIC number if you don't remember if your organization has registered before or not. Step number 2, you actually need to submit your partner information form in NetSuite, and this is a new step. This is mainly also true for you organization that actually never applied to any call before with us, and you are completely new, and you never actually submit anything in your previous platform called Plaza. So if that's the case and you are a new applicant, you need to go to step 2. If actually you have submitted an application form to our call or to our EAT community NEB call in the past, and this means you have been registered in Plaza before, then you don't need to submit a PIF. You directly go and contact the service desk that will give you access and credential to the application form to NetSuite. And you will actually be guided directly to step number 3. Okay, which step number 3 is actually accessing the platform. And this is where you're gonna look into your application. You select the call and you actually open and create an application form. And this is actually the step that I'm going to show you right now. So just a second. I'm going to show you this. Can you see my screen well? Yes, I think so. So this is actually the PIF. When you click on the link on the presentation, you can see this platform. This is actually a one-page document that, as I said, any new applicant, any new organization that was never participated in any project before or any call for proposal before need to submit, starting with a PIC, as I said. So you also have some instruction here and the link to actually copy and proceed with your registration in the EU funding portal, tender portal. This is a very straightforward step. So whatever you follow the step is just entering some administrative information. You will automatically be provided with a PIC number, and you just need to copy here. And then it's about information about your organization, the acronym, the legal name, the person, organization email, and also what type of organization. This is very important also because we will look into this when we also look into the eligibility of criteria. And some code about your organization activities. And at the end, which is also very important, it's the person contact, which will appear as a primary contact in your proposal. And then you submit it, and by submitting the form, you will receive your credential. After our service will validate your organization, you will receive your credential, and you will actually be able to access this application form. I can show you this right now. So you will connect with our credentials, and this is what you actually see. There is a very little information here at the bottom in the menu. You click on menu, and actually you just scroll over, and you see call for proposals. You see open. You click on open calls, and you actually can see the call for proposal which are open. So we're going to click on connect in this case and apply. You can see you have the short description here of the call, just to make sure, the link to the call webpage, and also the call launch date, when the call is actually closing, and is it open or not. So we click on apply. This can take up to 7 seconds. So this is normal, no worries. We just need to be a little bit patient. This is how the system actually works. And this is going to be the application form. Okay, so you will see you have the program name, just to make sure you actually apply to the correct call for proposals. You have when the call is opened, when it closed, and the status in progress. This is when actually you are studying is a draft. And when it's submitted, you will see as a status submitted. You have several tabs here. You start with the main information. The ID proposal number, which will be this CFP ID, will be automatically displayed when you do the first save as a draft. okay? And you start with your application. So you select the main challenge, your project address. So I'm picking one randomly based on the call manual and the explanation and the requirement. If your proposal also addresses another challenges, you can also decide to, but it's not mandatory. And then you actually select your outcome, your outputs between 1 and 2, the project title. So I'm putting just random a project title, a project acronym, the start and end date. So as in the call manual, we also clearly explain what are the dates. So you're going to start on the 1st of February and you will finish at the end of November 2025. These numbers will appear at the end when you actually complete your budget. As executive summary, you actually need to put some explanation about what your project is about. This information will be public, and for dissemination purposes, if your project is selected. So just to make sure it's clear, it doesn't contain any confidential and sensitive information. And then you go through the list of keywords that actually your project is about. So when you click, you have a drop-down menu, which is very long, and you select whatever. It's minimum of 3, maximum of 5. Okay, and just by clicking, you can select. You can also remove them if it was a mistake or you prefer to select another one. And you also can. And you have to put some free self-defined keywords. And just by clicking, adding a new, you can actually, and click on enter, you can actually add them. So here, for instance, EIT, and another one, which community. So at least 3, a maximum of 5 keywords. And then you save as a draft. It's also take a few seconds and you will see changes saved, which means this is okay and you can actually continue. You can also always go back to an information and change it before the submission is done. So we continue with the partner information, and you remember that when you did the PIF, you create your proposal, you did it with your credential as a main partner, actually as a single and unique partner in this project. So your name will be displayed, the name of your organization will be automatically displayed here, together with the contact details of the main contact person that actually created and enter the registration and create the proposal. So you actually don't need to update anything here. Automatically, you will also see your partner name here, and what you actually need to do is to add a partner description, your expertise and skills to actually carry out the specific role and project in this and task in this project. Okay, this is just in case it's not for this call. It's just in case there are multiple participants. We need to check the direct links, but this is not apply. This is not available for this call. You can actually just keep as a no. And co-editors is just in case you want to give access to another person in your organization. And for that, this person needs to be listed in the PIF as a contact person, okay? And by adding this, you can add directly the email address of this person linked to this organization. You save as a draft. And you wait a few seconds, as I said before. And you continue with the third tab, which is project scope. So here we actually go into the details of your project, right? And everything is linked to the evaluation criteria, the questions that are in the call manual in section 5, and that actually evaluators will look into. They will look into all of your application form, obviously, but they will mainly look into these questions when they assess the evaluation criteria that will be explained by Rebecca in a second. So it's also in the same order, more or less. So you can also look into the sections and guide you a little bit on what it is expected in each of these sections. You always have the title here and an explanation underneath. So you can also always understand. And if you have any doubt, of course, we are here to help you to understand. As I said, starting with the main objectives and purpose, and then we go through the main criteria of the evaluation. So we start with the excellence, the project background, the alignment with the NEB challenges. Of course, the project needs to be within the scope of this call, otherwise it's going to be bad evaluated, of course. The gender also and diversity inclusion needs to be considered as part of the excellence. And then we continue with the impact, the project outcome, output, and impact, how everything is interconnected, and including some metrics, the relevance with existing local strategies, the dissemination plan, replicability, future durability. This will be explained in a second, a little bit more in details, but it's very self-explanatory anyway. You can easily understand what this is about. And then we go into the quality of the implementation. This is actually how you're going to manage your project, what are the project management structure in place, and the risk management. In this case, it's a table. So you go through you open one risk, for instance, you select the category, you put a title, or likelihood, the likelihood risk, the impact, a description, mitigation, and you save it. You can put as many as you wish, adding using the tab here, add new, and you can move on, or just a few, considering, of course, the scope of your project. Ethics and security. If this is the case of your project, you click on yes, and you can actually select what are, and you can select several one, what type of ethics or security issues concern your project, and you explain here. If this is not the case, which most of the time is not, actually, you can just leave it as a no. And you move on, you save as a draft. A very important aspect here, because this is going to be a big, the longer actually part of your application with several, and you can see here the limits of the character, automatically it will be discounted. So it will be stopped if it reached the maximum amount. So what we definitely recommend you is to save as a draft very often, because you can also decide to, okay, I want to continue to stop here and continue later on. So this is possible, but also more, especially for the project scope, it's maybe even better to work offline. You can copy the questions. They will be also available on the guidelines for applicants in the coming days. So you can take the question, reply to them offline in another document, and then copy them directly and save as a draft. A little bit up to you as you wish, but remember that there is no automatic save here. So you always have to save as a draft. And if you are in the middle and for some reason you have a technical issue, you might maybe lose your data here. So it's very important that you act and you save as a draft very often. Moving on with the work plan, so work packages. So for those who don't know what a work package is, it's actually a collection of your main activities linked to your objectives that you will be explaining in the project scope, right? So in order to reach your objectives, you're gonna implement some activities, and these activities can be collected within different work packages. For this Connect call, because it's a very straightforward call with one single applicant as well, we recommend you to have one work package. And this is work like that. You click on the work package, you put the title, you put a work package description, and here, of course, we need to understand your activity, what you're going to do during your project, the tasks, if you have any task also during the project implementation. Doesn't have to be too long, but this is actually, and this is also part of the evaluation. Evaluators will look into the work plan and how it is articulated, how it is explained, and how it is linked to the project objective and to the budget as well. So you provide an explanation here, the start end date. Most likely, if you have only one work package, it's going to start at the beginning of the project and finish at the end. So you select November. You always need to put the work package leader. In this case, it's the single applicant. You also again need to put as a contributor, because the application form is more designed for multiple participants. But you always need to put again the leader, and you put the role of the partner. In this case, you as a single applicant, what you're going to do in this, what will be your role in this activities. You save. And then you will be able to add your deliverables only after having created your work package. And if you remember, there are 2 mandatory deliverables, right? Actually, there is a mistake here. It's not up to 4, but it's actually, I mean, the minimum is 2. You can, if you want, add another deliverable. This is a bit up to you, but the minimum is actually 2. So deliverable 1, the description, the achievement date. So we have also some guidance in the call manual when the date should be. So you add 1 deliverables, and you had the second one because you all know you only have 1 work package, and you put the date of the submission of the second deliverables. And you can see here work package 1, the name, the description, who contribute to the role, and deliverables 1 and 2. You save as a draft. And then we move on. You can, sorry, just a second. Okay. And then you continue with actually your output milestones and KPIs. You can also show them and hide them here. So the output, remember that they are also already selected in the call manual. So you choose, you put the achievement date, who is responsible, of course, in contribute. In this case, it's going to be the same planner. You do the same with the milestones. So you exactly do the same exercise. You select your milestone, the name, description, achievement date, etc. And then the KPIs. The KPIs are listed. All the KPIs are pre-listed here. And what you actually need to do is to select which one is fit with your actually your project, right? So what you need to do is actually to click, you select, oh yes, I want to contribute to this one. You put an explanation, the target value for this KPI. So for instance, it's going to be 1 or 2. You put the achievement date. So the achievement date, it's also a recommendation, put the end of the project, because most likely you can have at the beginning, you can have in the middle. In this case, most likely you're going to have it at the end. So let's put at the end of the project, November. Responsible partner, it's easy. As we said, it's you as a single applicant. And then imagine the KSN number 3 is not applicable. Unfortunately, you cannot remove it, because if you actually click on here, you believe you have removed it. But when you submit your application, we'll say, no, you haven't complete KSN number 3, because this is how the system is designed. So what you actually need to do is just as an explanation, you put not applicable, target value 0, the achievement date, you put a random date. You need for the system to select a responsible partner. But whenever you will look into the KPI, you will say, oh, no, this one is not applicable. So it's a 0, and we know the partner will deliver other KPIs. And you do the same with the rest of the list of KPIs. You save as a draft. And then you move on with your budget. And with your budget, you will see a project summary here, which is basically a summary in addition to your project section here. As a single applicant, actually, it's going to be just a repetition. So you go through the cost categories. The cost categories, we are working with Horizon Europe program cost. So the budget is exactly the same if you are familiar with this type of funding. We have also a document in the call manual, in the call webpage that explain this cost category, but basically most of you will have employees cost. You will have maybe some subcontracting cost as well, other goods and services or travel, etc. So I'm just putting some random number here so you can see the budget is automatically calculated, and you have a 25% of indirect cost also automatically calculated. What you need to do is to put a description next to each of the cost you have, the budget you have selected here. We need a bit of an understanding of the description. So you will probably say, okay, I need 3 PFTs, 3 full-time employee, or 1 full-time employee to do this, to run this activity you explain. Is a senior, is the junior person. We also need to understand the subcontracting cost, to do what, under which activity, or the goods and services, the travel. I'm going to travel this time. I'm going to for this event, or organize this type of activity. So we need to understand, evaluators, we need to understand what the budget is associated to. And then you put the EAT funding percentage. So as a requirement, it's also 80% and 20% of own funding. As I said, you've seen the error message. If I put 1% here, of course, the system will see there is an error here. So I have to put at least 20%. You can also decide to put 25, 21. It's really up to you. In this case, you need to reduce the EIT funding accordingly, right? I will leave it like that. And type of co-funding. If you can see here, we have the number of co-funding. So here I'm assuming I'm using my own funding, my own resources. But if actually you have other type of co-funding, national, regional, non-EAT funding, other funding, or private funding, you just need to put the percentage here. Automatically it will be calculated. And at the end, the total, of course, always needs to be 100%. Automatically, it will calculate also how is it in terms of amount. And what you just need to select is, okay, my co-funding type come from the private, the national, other. You can select several options, and that's it, what is required. And you save as a draft. And we are done. Okay, what, of course, you will need to do before you check everything is correct and you submit your proposal. By submitting your proposal is going to be one time. Okay, so if you submit one time, you click the button here, you will see a message. Are you sure you want to submit? It's not longer editable if you submit. So it's very important that you do it when you're sure everything is correct and included and fulfilled. And the status will be actually as submitted instead of in progress. You can also check it in your, you go back to your menu, you go into Call for Proposal, My Applications, and you will see, of course, I have several because we tested, but you will see, for instance, under Connect, you will see in progress or submitted, depending on the status. If it's still in progress, as I said, you can always open it and continue to work on it, okay? I'm going to very quickly go back to the presentation and show you very, very quickly the rest. Okay, so after that, what actually we recommend you to do is, of course, to read the guideline for applicants. You're going to have a screenshot, explanation, and this document will be uploaded on the call website next week. Register your organization in NetSuite as early as possible, or contact the service desk if you are an existing partner or you know you have already completed your Plaza before, and we will guide you in this. Before submitting your proposal, of course, check you fulfill your core requirements, and some indication will be shared with you later on by Hélène as well. It is completely readable in English and submitted in NetSuite. Don't wait until the end. We definitely recommend you to do it even before, one day before, to avoid any technical issue, also because the platform is new, to avoid any overload of the system. And as I said, only one submission is allowed. So whenever you do that, it's no longer possible to edit. Okay, and if you have any doubt, you can contact us in PMO. Evaluation and selection. This is actually when the call closes, right? So after the 26th of September, we're going to check all the submitted proposal and go through the 6 criteria, looking into the completeness, the registration of applicants, the eligibility of applicants based in an EU member states or a third country. Only single entity are available. Be careful, we don't accept consortia. The co-funding rate is minimum of 20%, the KPI addressed, as we said before, and the mandatory deliverables as well. For those who are stars, we might grant you 5 calendar days in order to correct your data. So imagine you actually submitted only 1 mandatory KPIs, we're going to ask you to correct your application form, but we give you only 5 days calendar days. After this deadline, if it's not corrected, of course, your proposal will remain, will be ineligible. After that, we go through the quality evaluations of the eligible proposals, and external experts, evaluators will actually assess your proposals based on the excellence, impact, and implementation, based on predefined evaluation criteria that will be explained by Rebecca. So they will produce a summary evaluation report and give you a maximum score of 70 points maximum per proposal. Give you to you, Rebecca.
Perfect. So I'll try whiz through this because we're running really behind on the agenda. As Anne-Laure said, the proposals will be evaluated according to 3 sections: excellence, impact, and implementation, with a total of 70 points. Any proposals that score under 45 points or lower, will be automatically disqualified from receiving funding. So each criteria point is scored out of 5. We designed the application form so that the questions in the application forms that Anne-Laure just walked you through corresponds to the evaluation points, in that they follow the same chronological order as the evaluation criteria. So this will make it much easier for both you and the evaluator to ensure that all of the information that you're looking for, that we're looking for, will be received. Let me just see these slides. Here we go. So please read the questions very carefully. All the scoring criteria will be in the question itself. If you're missing any of the information that's part of the question, you will automatically not be able to score 5 points. So for instance, this first criteria asks you to present proposal objectives that are both SMART and in line with NEB challenges. So if you don't include SMART objectives, or if you don't align them with the NEB challenges, you will be able to get a maximum of 3 points. Okay, so please just read the questions fully. As I said already, the evaluation criteria here can be used alongside the application form, and they'll be following the same chronological order. Okay, so this is the first section, excellence, which is around the design of the project. It asks for the project objectives, social demand and context, and the proposed solution and methodology. As well as this, it asks for the integration of the NEB values, sustainability, inclusivity, and aesthetics. Please make sure that all 3 NEB values are integrated throughout the proposals. This is one of the common weak points that we find. And finally, 5 points for gender and diversity. Once again, we ask for these to be addressed from the challenge definition into the proposed solution. Next, we have the impact section, where we ask for performance metrics, alignment with local strategy, dissemination and end user engagement plan, replicability, future durability potential. Okay. And finally, we get more to kind of the practicalities and operational side, which is in the implementation section, where your project management structures, your risk and mitigation plan, work plan and budget, and team competencies, as Anne-Laure showed you on the application form, will be evaluated. So Ellen later on will give you a bit more practical writing skills. But for now, yeah, Anne-Laure, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So when your proposal is actually evaluated, for those who will be selected, you will actually start the conditions clearing phase. So we said up to 8 projects with up to 15K with a score of at least 45 points will actually be funded. So the selected project will probably receive a list of conditions in order to improve your proposal before getting officially funded. And this is gonna be, as you remember, the timeline from December to January, more or less. After this period, actually, we check if your conditions are fulfilled, and if that's the case, the onboarding and the contracting phase can begin, and the project can start. So each project will actually organize the contract with the respective KICs, and the project can start on the 1st of February. That's all for the process. Hélène, I give you the floor for some tips and tricks. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne-Laure, and good afternoon, everyone. I wish I could stand here and say that I will now be able to tell you how to write a perfect proposal and that yours will be successful. I obviously can't do that, but I can provide a few tips and tricks based on some of the mistakes that we've seen over the years and some of the kind of best examples that we've seen. I'm aware that some of you have more or less proposal writing experience than others. So I think I'll start with the basics because it is fundamentally important to make sure that you get the basics right before going any further. And I think the key point here that I want to hammer home is keep it simple, explicit, and tangible. And this builds on what has been discussed already, for example, around ensuring that you're actually answering the question. And my advice would be to make sure that you read the full call manual in detail beforehand, look through each of the evaluation criteria before you even begin your brainstorming phase about what your project is, for example, and how you want to present this in the proposal. And once you have that in mind, then move on to the questions. And I think the key point here is that firstly, it comes down to ensuring that you are actually answering the question, but also that you're not relying on the evaluator making any assumptions on your organization, your project, or your experience. And because if it's not on the page, we can't evaluate it. And I think that's quite important. We can't evaluate it based on links that you provide. We can't evaluate it based on an example of a previous project that you've done that demonstrates your expertise. If it's not there written down, then it's not something that we can score you on. And as a bit of an example here, in terms of making sure you're answering the actual question, so one of ours talks about identifying target groups, and I've got two examples here. One, it's important that you do actually mention 2 target groups, not just one, and that 2, you are being specific about what those target groups are. So for example, the first one says the project will target local citizens of the town and business-minded individuals. In theory, that does look like 2 groups, but local citizens of the town is incredibly broad, and how exactly you intend to make that connection is unclear to an evaluator. And business-minded individuals, that could be anyone from entrepreneurs, for example, to students or anyone who has an interest in business. So these are just some of the things to bear in mind. Whereas the second example here says it will target the local 65+ population and school children from 3 identified schools in the district. I'm not saying you have to be this specific, but it is worth bearing in mind and making sure that you are actually answering every aspect of the question that is there, not in detail, but it needs to be specific. And I think in practice, I would just encourage that you ask yourself these questions as you're going through. So have you answered all of the questions, even the optional ones? So for example, we have a question on financial sustainability, which has been mentioned previously. This is optional, but if you don't put anything, you automatically will not be evaluated on that, and you do lose you lose the opportunity to get up to 5 points. So even if you're not convinced that you have the strongest answer, I would encourage you to answer all of the questions as far as possible. Similarly, just double check if you copy pasted the same answer anywhere. It's likely that you're working off an offline document and then onto this one. So do a double check. And once again, cross-referencing the call manual and the corresponding evaluation criteria with the question. I would suggest that you signpost. So if it says, for example, please describe the social demand, your response can be as direct as the social demand for this project stems from X. And similarly, thinking about being specific, if you talk about social demand, think about the local context. Don't talk, for example, about an EU-wide issue or about national challenges. These are all relevant, but it's important to be specific to your specific project. Next point, have you used AI to help you write your proposal? I'm not saying this in a positive or negative way. We're aware that many people do, and that's absolutely fine. But be aware that we can tell usually if it has been written by AI and then not touched up afterwards or amended by your own individual development. And then just as a final point on this section, longer does not necessarily equal better. We don't need to have a master's thesis for this. The important thing is that you are answering the question. So pay attention to that. Don't worry too much about overly fluffy language, but focus on being concise and to the point. I don't think, oh, perfect, thank you. And then moving on to how to incorporate the New European Bauhaus into your project. I think there was a question in the chat earlier about how we embed the compass, for example. And one of our questions will refer to, have you sufficiently included all of the values of NEB? But I would suggest that this stage happens kind of before your project writing. This stage happens very much in your brainstorming and when you're planning what your project is, so that you're ensuring that inherently your project addresses the three values of the New European Bauhaus. It is sustainable, inclusive, and beautiful. And if that is the case, then that should come through in your proposal, no matter what. And I think on that, have you considered all three values sufficiently? This doesn't mean you need to give perfect equal weighting to all three. However, it is usually quite obvious if one of them comes off as an afterthought. So for example, if you have a mobility project, which is really inclusive, but fundamentally aesthetics is addressed by the addition of a few plants along the side of the road, for example, as an evaluator, the chances are they will look at that and think this is an add-on rather than a fundamental part of the project. Similarly, a public space improvement, which is aesthetically focused and done in a co-created manner, but where you haven't actually thought about the sustainability of the materials being used in the long term. And I would encourage you to think about this at the beginning before you go into proposal writing stage. And if you do so, it is likely to come through in all of the questions that you're answering. Next slide, please. I don't know who has control of it. Thanks. And lastly, going a bit further, can you think about some narrative building where possible? So connect the dots. Once you've written all of your answers, read through all of them from start to end and make sure that they are weaving a coherent narrative from the beginning through to the end, that you're not saying something in one answer that is contradicting an answer in another, for example, that there isn't a gap, and that together they complement one another. And in addition, I would consider the level of ambition of your project. I have written here, aim for ambitious in ideas, but pragmatic in delivery. Obviously, if you write an incredibly ambitious proposal, then you might think that you'll score very highly. The chances are you will then be limited in what you can actually achieve within your project. And we would much rather that you are realistic about what you can achieve, but ambitious in what you want to achieve. I hope that makes sense. And then similarly, can you think about early on how you can consider the impact and the legacy of the project? So have you thought in your proposal about what will happen to this project, if possible, after the end of the funding, so that it doesn't end up sitting in a vacuum? And have you demonstrated how you want to hand that over, ideally to the community at the end of the project? These are some things to think about as you're kind of going beyond the fundamentals of a solid proposal. And if you have time as a final check, I would encourage you to get a second pair of eyes to review the proposal for you, ideally someone who hasn't been involved in the writing process, and maybe someone who is unfamiliar with the project or New European Bauhaus, just to make sure that you're not missing something. It's very easy to get bogged down in the details when you're the one doing the writing. And that's the end of this section. But I will say, if you have any questions on the evaluation criteria, for example, that we're not mentioning in this section, please do reach out to us. You'll have our emails. We're very happy to answer any concerns around that, and best of luck with the proposal writing.
Thanks so much, Ellen, for this speedy section of tips and tricks. I'm sure it will come really useful to all of them. I see a hand raised, but I don't know, Rebecca, if we've been answering some, hopefully most of your questions on the chat, but I don't know, Rebecca, if you kept track of outstanding ones, or we let people ask them in voice if we're missing them.
Yeah, I suggest we go, we have an open discussion now, and any questions that haven't been answered can be asked now.
Okay, go ahead.
No, so feel free to raise your hand if you have a question that needs an answer. We're here to answer.
Maria Luisa.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I was just sending the questions also in the message box. I was wondering, since this is like one entity funding, do we need to add, or is it beneficial to add other letters of intent of like collaborative partners that might not be funded but are interested in this project, or that's completely not necessary? Or yeah, that would be my question.
Maybe I can take it.
Yes.
Yeah, because actually the application form, the application form is designed in a way we don't accept any supporting documents. So is really so it's not necessary in this case. Perhaps within your, I don't know, your work plan or whenever you define your project scope, you can mention something that maybe bring you additional value into your project and the credibility of it, but it's actually not a must. And I would say, as I said, there is no supporting documents accepted in this call. So yes, I think.
And building up on that and following also Claire, Ellen's tips is whatever you say in the description, please be concise. So if you say this entity is interested, be concise on why are they interested, whether you had been working before together, if there is any website that proves so, you can add it there. So no additional documents, but please, within the means that you have, bring as much detail as possible.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I see a question from Philip.
Hi, good afternoon. Just a question about the, we're in very early stages, a group of people locally, so we don't have an organized or registered charity at this stage, or we haven't, registered as a group working together, officially. And do we have to do that before this call, or is it something we do after the call?
It has to be a legal entity. Has to be a legal entity, public, private, NGO, but you have to have a legal entity that represents you, and then you'd be able to register in the EU tender portal. That will give you a PIC number, then you'll have the PIF number, all this admin. But the first step is to be legally registered.
But we could piggyback on one of the group who has an existing legal entity then.
Yes, you could do that. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Please, now is your chance. Okay, Maria Giovanna.
Thank you for the presentation. I would be curious to know if in the evaluation process, the fact that an entity has been already granted a grant in previous calls, connect or co-create, would be assessed positively, negatively, or just it doesn't matter at all. Thank you.
It be assessed as any other application, because it's assessed externally, and the external evaluators change sometimes every year, and it's very likely that the person who reviews it doesn't know about you. So then another issue is if you believe that project builds upon something else that you have worked around NEB, and that can be applied to any other entity that have worked with other NEB projects, not funded by EIT, but by any other entities. They can bring it in if it's related to what they want to do. So it's not about selling all what you have done, but if you had worked on a NEB project that it's building upon with this proposal, you can mentioning that, and that is when it could be assessed positively. Alex.
You're muted, maybe. Not hear you.
No, we don't seem to be able to hear you.
Maybe you can write it now in the chat, or we pass to the next person. Meanwhile.
We have this question on the chat, Maddie, about does the evaluation include a return on investment for the Connect call, which has already 15K funding versus cost of the application?
Sorry, can you tell me a bit more about it? So it's a project that already got funding?
I don't think, I mean, I don't know exactly. Yeah, maybe we can, this person can maybe detail a little bit more. But actually, this is the funding you're gonna receive, 15K exactly, regardless of how long the time you spend to actually prepare your application. And yes, this is gonna be a reimbursement of your cost for the project implementation. And yes, up to 15,000 euros. But I don't know if we answer your question, so it would be nice, useful if you can detail a little bit further. We're going to share the presentation. I just jump in because we have this question coming up. So yes, we're going to share the presentation, the slides, together with the recording link of this webinar on the call webpage. Okay, we're going to prepare a summary of the questions, also published on the core website in the coming days.
So instead of sharing the chat, which at the moment is a bit scattered, we'll try to make sense of it and publish a document that collects all the frequent answered questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a hire an external project manager, included our 20%. I don't know if that's 20% of the co-funding or the subcontracting. Just to be clear, subcontracting, there isn't a specific rule for subcontracting, but it isn't expected to be above 15% of the total budget to subcontract. And then that could be if you need to hire someone and is a company, that could be also, that could be subcontracting. And then 20% co-funding is what you bring. It could be personnel, it could be in other goods and services, and so on. Well, if you don't have any further questions, and you still believe that there are other queries that can arise in the next few days or in the next few weeks until we close the call, please reach out to us. The contact details is in the call manual, and we will answer you as soon as possible. I shared here several references to the call manual, so please make reference to it first and come back to us if it's not clear enough. I don't know. I see more questions. I don't know, Rebecca, if we close it here or we continue because we are above time.
I think we can take a couple more questions. It's completely optional. Obviously, if you would like to stay with us, the recording will be available so you can see the answers to these questions afterwards. Perhaps we can just take this last question from Alex because I noticed he did have his hand up. So yes. Alex asked, hi, we have been running a participatory design project for high school students. Each year, around 16 to 20 students make public space projects for teenagers in the historical center of the city, an area with many schools. This is not specifically addressed to mobility issues, but it does have an impact on that. How much should the project be about mobility?
Well, no, it's not about mobility or about food or about manufacturing, even though the kicks are involved in here. As we said, we are responding to the access that were collected by the GRC in different locations of Europe. And as long as you route the projects into reconnecting with nature, gaining sense of belonging, prioritizing people who need it the most, and and circularity, you'd be responding well to the call. Of course, then additionally, each KIC has its thematic areas that we are expertise on. And if there is a project that tackles urban mobility issues, then we try to allocate that project for the KIC that can be coordinating this project in the best possible way. In this case would be urban mobility. And as such, if somebody tries to present a food community garden, then we try to involve EIT Food in it, but this is not a must.
So we have a couple more questions coming in, but I suggest that we wrap the meeting up. We are available via email for any questions you maybe have regarding your application. Thank you for joining us today. We wish you the best of luck in writing your applications, and we're all available for any questions that you may have.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for attending. And just to remember, next Tuesday is the info session for Co-Create Call. If you are interested, you are welcome to assist as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
all.